Hey everyone, today we're going to be looking at the creepy, scary, and disturbing parts of both Stranger Things chapters in Dead by Daylight. Let's get into it. Vecna knows we're watching. This is similar to many of the killers in the realm, and visible with them turning to face us in the lobby, a sign that they're watching us, and are aware of our presence. Unknown does this rather creepily, Trickster does it slightly more cutely, then Vecna does it honestly quite menacingly, and it's pretty freaky to think that he knows we're watching, and that's why he looks at us this way. Vecna's abyss skin is particularly disturbing, with it being mentioned by the devs to be a more evolved version of Vecna compared to what we see from him during the flashback in the show. He originally looked like this, and came to look so destroyed as a result of 11 pushing him into the abyss. However, one really creepy feature he didn't have yet was this elongated hand, similar to how his fully evolved look appears. What makes this so creepy is that it still looks very human, but of course it just quite isn't. Vecna's Worldbreaker is pretty disturbing in itself, with the entire trial being blanketed in this blood red colour, and an ominous clock ticking. However, what's even creepier is the secret new mechanic called Mind Break, which requires a survivor to have full 4 stacks of Worldbreaker tokens. Upon them having this, you're able to push them into the air for a short time, leaving them immobile, struggling against your power. It's much like how the characters like Max, for example, appear when Vecna takes control before he tries to kill them. It's here where you can perform a secret mini Mori, where you brutally and efficiently finish the survivor. Steve faced off against Myers? Now this one may seem silly, but there's an interesting line in the flavor text of Steve's prestige outfit, where he's covered in blood. The line specifically says, "To be a damn good babysitter, you've got to be willing to face off against the boogeyman." This is really interesting phrasing, as I don't believe anything in Stranger Things is ever referred to as the boogeyman, but a common title for Michael Myers is the boogeyman, specifically by Laurie, so Laurie may have told Steve this, suggesting at one point Steve got this outfit and bloodied look by facing down Myers himself and fighting back in some way, possibly quite defiantly, and likely to save some others too, as it mentions his babysitter role. So what happened in that trial? Even in the realm, Steve is still a bit of a hero. It's another question, of course, if he won or not though. I think probably not against Myers, but it's still most definitely a very brave act to face down someone like Myers. I'm sure there's going to be theories now as well that he was the one responsible for Myers leaving the realm. He fought him off. Another disturbing entry about the prestige or bloodied looks is on Nancy's, where there's some quite disturbing suggestion that her outfit is actually covered in Barb's blood, with her top flavor text saying, "Now maybe they'll take Barb's disappearance seriously." This may just be a general comment about the disappearance of Barb and the seriousness of that much blood, but I think as we're in the realm, it's very real and possible this is actually Barb's blood. Characters in the realm often change physically or manifest things about themselves when an emotion is intense. Therefore, Nancy's guilt and frustration over the death of Barb could very well have manifested her friend's actual blood onto her body, which is horrifying. The Demogorgon's bloodied outfit also appears to link to this, with it mentioning a missing person, and Demo of course having the add-on Barb's glasses, Barb's shattered glasses after she was attacked, suggesting the demo we have is the Season 1 demo, and so the blood across it is indeed Barb's. What's even more disturbing is that if we look into its mouth, we can see a whole lot of blood, where it does not have this on its base look, suggesting the way it got there was likely from Barb's death, with it being done in a similar method to the demo's Mori, which is horrible. 11's prestige outfit is by far the most visually disturbing, I'd say, out of any of them though, with her featured with blood dribbling from her eyes, much like what happens when she pushes her powers, or how we see her just after sending Henry to the abyss. In fact, this may have manifested as a memory of that moment, with the corresponding Vecna skin being visible too. The flavor text certainly seems to refer to this moment in the show. An incredibly disturbing detail that you'll find on Hawkins' lab is that the hooks are seemingly made out of people. If you look at their composition, you'll see that it's largely just this strange webby meaty substance. And this is very similar to the composition of the Mindflayer during Season 3 of the show. The Mindflayer is basically just a combined mass of melted down biological matter, combining the rats it initially takes over, and then also all of the people too, meaning these hooks are made up of the same thing, and potentially because it's in the realm, they may even be composed of the survivors who have died, reusing their bodies to make up the hooks for future ones, which is truly horrifying. That's your teammate right there. One of the creepiest map details, I think at least, that opens a lot of questions too is surrounding the portal room. Interestingly, the portal is open, and it doesn't just seem to be a visual thing either. If you go up to the portal and listen, you can hear the noises of the Upside Down seeping into the realm and the trials. This suggests something a lot more sinister, I think, and a possibility that the entity has allowed its realm to be bridged with the Upside Down. If you look down below the elevator, you can see the pulsing orange colors, and even the portal emanates a small glow. This merging of the two realms can be seen clearly by how Vecna is able to simply sink into the floor to access the Upside Down as well. The two are seemingly directly connected. You'll also see that throughout the trial, vines sprawl the corridors, suggesting possibly that the Mindflayer is actually present and can feel or spectate the events of the realm as well. This all seems to be the real deal and not just an entity imitation of the Upside Down in the Mindflayer. I mean, to give even more evidence toward this theory, we can literally see the Mindflayer in the lobby screen looming over our characters. So where before it may have been a more distant connection, now the Mindflayer is literally inside the realm seemingly, watching over the trials alongside the entity. Two entities laughing at the puny beings beneath them, fighting to survive. It would also suggest, therefore, that the entity and the many theories that have been over the years about itself and the Mindflayer being friends or having a bond of some kind is probably true, which leads us on to the next point as well. The entity seemingly made a deal with the Mindflayer. This is hardly an abstract idea or impossibility, with the entity being known to make direct deals with powerful beings. Take Pyramid Head, for example, a character who the entity could have feasibly just taken and yoinked into the realm, but instead decided to provide him a formal invitation to join it and continue on with his duties. Sadako is another powerful character who has a clear moment of bonding with the entity when she joins. It doesn't just take her or even seemingly trick her into its fog, unlike the lesser powerful characters or characters backed by other powerful entities, such as the Cenobites with Leviathan. Therefore, I think it's very possible, especially now with two Stranger Things killers in the realm, that the entity and the Mindflayer form some kind of deal for both a Demogorgon but also Vecna to join the trials. It may have been a rocky relationship at points too, with the Demogorgon briefly leaving between 2021 and 2023. I think the most interesting interpretation is that the Mindflayer allowed the entity to take these characters and partially invade Hawkins, but at the cost of helping the Mindflayer to eventually win against the Hawkins residents, each of them getting what they want basically. This relationship as a whole actually leads to a lot of consequences for the world of Stranger Things. A big one is the huge timeline shift that will occur for the Stranger Things universe. In this Stranger Things universe, Steve, Nancy, and Jonathan were all taken by the entity between season 2 and 3 of the show, as they came to the realm. Obviously, this messes up the Stranger Things continuity quite a lot though, with it likely going a lot worse for the Hawkins residents in this universe without the help of those characters. This is made even worse when Eleven, Dustin, Robin, and Eddie are all taken 4 years later too. It suggests that Hawkins may have actually been overthrown by Vecna in this timeline. It could even be why he's so chilled about being in the realm, as he completed his goal. What's even weirder about all this is that it means characters like Steve, who were a good 4 or 5 years older than Dustin, are now the same age, with Dustin being 18 when he enters the realm, yet Steve also being 18, creating this strange sort of paradox moment due to when the entity took each of them. They're actually both the same age. Eddie has a fairly disturbing story behind him entering the realm, with him being saved at the point where he was meant to die.
I thought I was gonna die.
With the lore mentioning that as the Demobats swirled him, fog replaced them and he was taken to the realm and put into silence. He then hears the sound of a rusty chain following it through the fog. He calls for help but only hears crows, before he finally hears a familiar voice. I'm assuming Dustin's possibly, which as mentioned before must be really freaky as he was taken a few years before Dustin, yet they seemingly arrived at the same time, and Dustin is now like 4 years older. Confusing and very eerie for them, I imagine. Vecna has a really horrifying Mori, with the method for his kills being his method in Season 4, and specifically with characters like Chrissy, where he lifts them into the air, destroys their eyes, and then breaks their limbs. What makes it worse is what he says though. Vecna has a series of really horrifying and quite disturbing Mori voice lines, where he singles out the Stranger Things characters in specific ways, and sort of mocks them for different things. Some are more generic, such as,
It's time for you to leave.
however, there's also a number of much more targeted comments like,
I
where we get a more personal comment. Steve's targets his inability to save the others.
You're not saving the day today, Steve.
Dustin's mocks him for thinking of everything like a game of D&D.
This ends your game, Dustin.
Jonathan's is just really horrible actually, and sort of targets his previous abuse and torment he went through in childhood by belittling him. Vecna is able to see all of that after all.
Poor little Jonathan.
The worst one though has to be Eddie's, where Vecna singles him out, and also his whole struggle throughout season 4 of being a hero and always running. A brutal thing to say as he kills him. Another really creepy thing the Entity did was rob 11 of her powers. This can be seen when 11 literally tries to outstretch and use them in the lobby. Nothing happens. However, she does still get a nosebleed. It's almost a cruel jest by the Entity, mocking her attempts to try and fight back by her powers failing her, yet her nose still bleeding. She still gets the downsides of trying to use her abilities, but they don't work. It's rather cruel, to be honest. One of the persistently disturbing things that the Entity does is experiment on the killers. This happens on a number of killers, such as the Hag's Toxic Roots outfit, where she appears to have been infected by the alien planet Devaka, with the Entity allowing this to happen as no other character gets infected. We can see how it mutates and changes her body to a different texture or substance. This is not too different for the Stranger Things characters, and particularly the Demogorgon. There's a number of Demogorgon outfits where the flavor text directly mentions that the Entity and its realm have altered Demo's appearance. Take the Twisted Demogorgon outfit for example, where it states that Demo's body was altered by the Entity's fog, a disturbing thought with it causing these strange growths to form on its body, said to be a chitinous carapace, which almost appears on it like armor, but maybe it's almost an infection. It further gets these strange growths from its stomach that eerily reflect the Entity's claws, almost like it's taking control of Demo from within. It's pretty creepy. The other strange outfit that Demo has is the geomutation one. Originally this was believed to be a similar thing of an Entity experiment on Demo, with it mentioning it to be an unusual mutation formed in the Entity's realm, causing a rock-like substance to grow across it. So whilst the rocky texture may be explained, what isn't is the strange sticky substance that covers it. Well, season 5 of Stranger Things seemingly answers what this is, with it looking eerily similar to the strange white substance that Nancy and Jonathan encounter after the explosion that releases the exotic matter. So this is likely what covers Demo, suggesting this is what it may have encountered within the fog also, which is a slightly disturbing thought, as it may hint toward the fact that the Upside Down is actually directly connected to the realm, or potentially even the Abyss. One small but genuinely, I think, quite creepy detail is that throughout Hawkins' lab you'll actually notice the cameras are on, and someone is watching. Now this is weird because the Entity doesn't need cameras to watch the trials. It can do so through the crows, and even out of the killer's eyes directly, or various other points in the trials that seem to be watching you. So who is this watching? This is no small mistake either, as when electronic equipment is present, it's usually important in some way, like the generators. It's possible therefore that the people in the right side up at Hawkins' lab are in some way monitoring the realm. Or who knows, maybe it was even Vecna before he came here too. Whoever it is, someone is watching and we don't know who. One of the creepier things on the Hawkins map is the secret room you can find, which you can only access with Nurse, who's able to teleport inside with her blink power, with the outer gate otherwise being locked off so no one else is able to enter. Inside you'll find a number of bodies and a load of generically branded beers. Some of them are just on the floor, but others are stuffed into the coolers. It's a rather eerie and creepy scene, especially with the strange and singular PC which emits a neon green glow. Furthermore, there's the board which notes a string of molecules and a formula, as well as the letters EGC, this being the code to find the golden toolbox on the map, sort of suggesting the scientists within here were once alive potentially, and were for whatever reason searching for the golden toolbox. I've always had the theory that the golden toolbox is the tools beyond compare that are mentioned in the engineer's toolbox by Vigo, a potential tool which could lead to escape from the realm. So maybe they were doing this, they were searching for these tools to escape the realm, but something got to them first. Hawkins is in fact one of few realms where there's just bodies everywhere, which is a little disturbing in itself. You'll notice that these bodies are all very generic though. They all appear to be the same or similar scientists, largely just with variations on their hair, but otherwise appearing the same. This is because they're likely not real people, but instead bodies manifested from the memories the survivors have of entering the Hawkins lab, probably 11's memories specifically, with all parts of the realm not reflecting reality, but instead how a character perceived or remembers their own reality, leading to this rather strange detail. Upstairs in the lab offices, you'll find that one of the rooms has a shaking cage with a rag thrown over it. It's not actually shown what is under here, but it's presumably one of the rabid or rogue rats that appear in season 3 of the show, which are a part of the Mindflayer. It's interesting though that this one specifically is trapped, where the others seem to peacefully blend in with the hooks. Maybe it even suggests that some of the scientists, possibly the same ones from the secret room, were actually experimenting on the Mindflayer in some way. There's something decently creepy, I think, about the fact that Vecna is inspired by the other killers in the realm. A key one, of course, being other Vecna, the original, the first, you could say, with there even being nods towards this, like their portraits being the same pose, and specifically Vecna's Season 5 design, more closely resembling D&D Vecna's appearance. Stranger Things Vecna also has very similar powers to that of Freddy Krueger and is clearly inspired by him, with one of his hands being longer and elongated like Freddy's claw, and his powers mimicking Freddy's Dreamworld abilities. Then there's his Mori, which is almost identical to Sadako's. Like how we have Jill, but then someone cosplaying as Jill as well. The realm brings together these characters, where in one universe they're fiction, but in another they're not, which is quite creepy, I imagine, for many people inside. There's a number of notably horrible add-ons that Vecna has, such as Victor's razor blade, the blade Henry's father uses to take out his own eyes after Henry kills his family, sparing only his father. The other being the still bloodied Soteria chip that 11 helped to remove from Vecna, ultimately causing his massacre of Hawkins' lab, killing many. One of the most disturbing parts about the original Stranger Things chapter can be found in a small entry of flavor text on Jonathan. Jonathan has been wearing a pair of jeans for years. The text directly stating, a pair of worn jeans that he has been wearing for years without giving it a second thought. Dude, come on. Alright, well, that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed. Thanks, and goodbye.